My name is Achala. I'm a postdoc at the University of Michigan. I was always a very curious, child. I did a lot of puzzles and board games. I still am very interested in those things. And so for me, it was a very natural progression to then be interested in science. I also was very privileged and fortunate to go to a school that really emphasized STEM, math and science classes, really introduced science research as a concept early on in the science curriculum. So that really helped to kind of expose me to the idea of being a scientist. And my parents were also very encouraging of education in general. They both had graduate degrees in engineering. And so that kind of also fueled me to start thinking about a career in science. And so I got involved in science research pretty early on in school, competed in science fairs, and kind of thought I would go into medicine or science research going into college. I am interested in multi-drug resistance in microbes, specifically bacteria. And I want to understand how these transport proteins that allow the bacteria to pump out antibiotics from inside the cell back into the environment, how those proteins work and where did they come from? So these proteins didn't appear out of thin air. They evolved from pre-existing ancestral proteins that served some other kind of function, whether that be removing toxic metabolites, removing heavy metals or other naturally occurring compounds in their environment. And those are functions that are still kind of cryptic. We don't really fully understand those ancestral functions. And so I would like to understand that evolutionary trajectory of these proteins from natural compound exporters to drug exporters, and also understand the role in bacterial physiology in these diverse environments and how that can help us to better anticipate drug resistance, emerging drug resistance, and better combat it in the future. I've had a pretty set path in terms of going from undergrad to a PhD and then from my PhD to a postdoc. I did kind of think about if I wanted to do a postdoc or not, and that was kind of a tough decision. But in terms of the scientific route, that has been pretty straightforward. I do think the science that I've done has been kind of unexpected. I went into grad school to an umbrella program, not really knowing what kind of science I wanted to do. I tried to be very open to following my gut feeling of what's exciting, who do I think I would want to kind of learn from, and what kind of science would be like interesting, but I didn't really go in with a set idea of I want to work on this specific question or this specific technique. And so that allowed me to explore things that I hadn't really thought about before, like complex behavior in microbes. And then I just followed where the science took me and then ended up learning more about metabolism and transport proteins. And then that took me into my postdoc. So I think I've just been trying to be open to different kinds of science and just following my gut. Even as a postdoc, I just love coming into lab, thinking about experiments, thinking about data, talking to people in the lab. So I would love to keep doing that. I'm open to kind of academia and industry. I have looked at industry jobs after my PhD as well, but definitely more on the R&D side, maybe coming up with new tools or new assays to support basic research, or being more in an R&D kind of setting in biotech, but definitely want to be at the bench, maybe progressing to managing and supervising more people, but definitely being, very science driven. What I love most about it is, and this is sometimes a frustrating aspect of science, but the fact that it is so uncertain and unexpected. When you start a project, you never know what direction it's going to go in. And sometimes that is like the most annoying thing about the project. But then when you kind of finally figure out what's going on, it's that epiphany moment that then makes all of it worth it in the end. And, sometimes you like start a project, you think it's going to go one way, and then it goes some completely other way. And that ends up being the most exciting and interesting and innovative part of your project. And so I would say as advice to try to be as interdisciplinary as you can, try to be as open to other fields, go to talks outside of your field, go to conferences, just kind of be open to all of the science that's around you. And you never know what seminar or what conversation with some other grad student over coffee will kind of click in your mind. And it may be completely different from what you're working on, but the perspective or something about the idea kind of clicks and changes how you think about your own science. The second thing I would say is to kind of seek out diverse mentors outside of your own lab, outside of even academia. And that helped me personally to kind of instill confidence in myself, especially early on in grad school when a lot of things weren't working. And I thought, oh, that means I'm not a good scientist. But I had at least a support network to tell me that that was not the case and to keep pushing me. And that really changed my experience in science. And I don't think everyone gets that, but try to seek it out as much as you can and start building a professional network early to help guide you in your career path and explore non-traditional non-academic career paths as well, and then you can find the best fit.